Namaste. I am Dr. LaTarsha Holden, CEO and founder of Phoenix Rising. I am your host. Today we have an awesome topic that we will be discussing. Um, uh, Not being your children's friend. You know, as parents, sometimes we can get off track and try to be more of their friends when actually they need us to be parents. They have friends. So I had invited an awesome guest to help us dive a little bit more into this topic. And I'm so excited to have Dr. Paul Dyer with us. I'm going to have to read this. Some people bios I might memorize 2 or 3 sentences, but let me just read so you can just see the vast knowledge that he's bringing to this topic. And also he can help us understand what is emotional intelligence. Dr. Paul Dyer has been teaching and training individuals in human performance on mental, emotional, and physical advancement. Dr. Dyer has worked with top tier business professionals to Olympic athletes to increase their potential. Dr. Dyer has devoted 40 years to learning and studying human development. He holds my goodness, I keep wondering, keep asking him how old he really is. He could go ahead and tell us. But Dr. Dyer holds 4 PhDs, 3 master degrees, and master certification in neuroscience, neuroanatomy, stress management, psychology, applied psychology, linguistics programming. He's a grand master of martial arts. Dr. Paul Dyer is a Hall of Fame inductee in several national and international martial arts Hall of Fame. Please help me welcome Dr. Paul Dyer to the show.
How you doing, my friend? And namaste. Welcome.
No, welcome. Oh my goodness. You can tell me later on what your real age, Dr. Dyer.
I would tell you now, it's 54.
Dr. Dyer, you have not did all that.
I'm so happy to be 54 because I was 53 the other week ago.
Oh my goodness. I mean, 4 PhD, 3 math. Oh my. So you just have basically spent your life basically studying the human behavior and the human development.
And thank you, LaTarsha, for allowing me to come on your show. Here's the thing, it's about service, right? If we look at our lives that we're going to serve humanity, then it is our due diligence to understand what we are giving the other. Not what we just give ourselves, that's also important, but what we take in, but how we call, not filter it, but allow you to give it to the rest of the world. So if the word speaks to you through Christ, you don't hold on to that, you give it out, right? Because that's where the energy flows too. I mean, life is about service, and we're antennas, and that's all we're here to do is serve one another. Yeah.
So explain to us more about emotional intelligence.
You know, this really helps because I studied in India, right? I studied in Delhi and Bangladesh, and I studied in Bali. And I've had great friends teach me about the body and the chemistry of the Ayurvedic sciences and all about how the body receives and transmits. Emotional intelligence, if we come from the universe, everything comes down from the universe and through all of everything, from the stars to the moons to all the galaxies. We are receiving that. In that reception, we transmit that. So in our bodies, emotional intelligence is you understanding how things are coming in and how things are going out. So emotional intelligence touches the human anatomy. It touches just your mind. It touches the brain of consciousness and it touches how we are moving and performing in our lives. Because if we don't move without understanding, then who and what is moving you? And I'll say that again. If we are doing things without understanding, then who and what is moving you? So when we get into emotional intelligence, it's knowing that I am moving this way because of this understanding that I feel, that I develop, that I cultivate to move in this way. Often in the environment dictates to so many of us what we should be doing and what we can't do. But that's the environment. And those words, should and can't, those are all negative words. The environment can only give you things that is what you call the the variable. It doesn't, it should never dictate to us, but it is applied, right? Just like if it's raining outside, we have a choice to have an umbrella or not to have an umbrella, right? If we don't have an umbrella, we get wet. We know this. Well, there are certain environments that are trying to curtail who we are as development and cultivation. The reason why there's two different words, development is something that is given to you, cultivation is something you develop yourself. When you cultivate, you are growing it. You are beginning that growth. You're taking, you're nurturing that seed. You're maturation that dirt that it grows from. Development just comes from the environment that's around us. Cultivate is what we take from the development and grow ourselves. Throughout all of life, if we don't grow what our understanding is, then we have an outside influence at doing it ourselves. And that's where we become sick and sideways.
Oh, wow. For me, my company, Phoenix Rising, we touch on is leadership principles and personal development. So why do you feel some people cultivate their emotional intelligence, their personal development, and some doesn't? I mean, is there a lack of self-awareness, or people just don't know where they are at any given time? You know, we're just traveling through life. We're just existing. We're not really living. So explain to us why you think some people are on that journey and do as others are seem lost.
Well, you really said something, LaTarsha, about awareness. Awareness is one key factor, and that is self-consciousness, not subconsciousness. Subconsciousness actually has 80% of subconsciousness is actually ruling most people. Most people are living and moving and doing from a subconscious level. Everything is so habitual. They don't know why they rolled down the window, but if you ask them, like, oh, because I was feeling hot. They don't know why they travel this, because they say, this is the way I always go. They grab something from the cupboard with the same hand. Well, this is how I grab soup. But they don't know why they do it. They don't know why they have developed these habitual habits on a constant basis. That's the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind has endured trauma from my past. It has endured trauma from my historical past, because you can pass down trauma through your RNA and your DNA. You can pass, I'll say it again, you can pass down trauma from your RNA and your DNA. Now, if you don't know how to cultivate a new chemistry and a new neural firing, then those past traumas from the history, well, you'll just keep regenerating and rejuvenating the same trauma over and over, from generational trauma to generational trauma to generational trauma. So awareness is understanding what your subconscious has been told and what your consciousness is aware of the subconscious. Because once you clear the subconscious and you are consciously aware, then that's when you are formulating a true action of doing.
Oh my, you know what? I was just thinking, I used to operate with a lack of self-awareness in my formative years, but I think I came to a crossroad when I became homeless. I had to take a look at, like you said, at the self-talk that was passed down, you know, how I related and my parents related to myself. And so, but when I became homeless, I came at a crossroad where it forced me to start addressing, in order to save my 6 children and myself from a life of hopelessness and going and everybody just firing out of control. Although it was painful, because Dr. Dyer, when you start to face yourself, that's not easy.
No.
And when you start to try to rewire your brain, that was probably just as hard for me than being homeless. The mental shift as a parent that had to take place in order for me to move forward was almost just as perplexing as being homeless. You know, so what do you think when people are in as parents, or what has to happen? And then I come back with what I did, but what has to happen in order to stop the generational curses, to have the emotional intelligence to start raising a family? What has to be put in place?
You have to say to yourself, new beginning. meaning a fresh, childlike opening to all things. New beginning, like you're addressing your spirituality, addressing your mental health, addressing your physical health, like really looking at it and saying, this isn't healthy, this isn't so good, not in comparison. And I think once we stop comparing ourselves to the other and look at what we are with ourselves, because we enslave ourselves by comparison. Like it's a negative. Remember, the environment's going to give you negatives, what you should and what you can't. And so if you take that information, what the environment's trying to do to you, you're going to be like, I can't do this, I'm not that, I'm not able to do this, I can't. So those are all negatives. So when you create that consciousness awareness of opening yourself up to letting that God, letting your heavens guide you, right? Truly guide you into the glory that you are, that's when you say, I'm beginning the new, right? The birth, the new. I am cultivating, I'm accepting, I am not accepting. I am doing, I'm not doing. And you are fully aware of what is good to your world and your life, because that's when the vibration. So emotional intelligence is allowing that vibration signal to be felt. Sometimes you feel it and be like, this isn't good for me. That's that awareness. Now you can understand why it doesn't feel good. You can understand how it doesn't feel good. And then you can make your conscious decision to do or not to do. And that's emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is not knowing that I know how to talk to someone who I don't want to talk to, right? That's conversations. I know how to sell a Winnebago to a person who doesn't want a Winnebago. That's not emotional intelligence. That's snake oil salesman, right? Emotional intelligence is knowing who you are, what you are, where you are, and how you are at every breath and every moment. And feeling it through all your chakras, feeling it through all the vibration in your body, understanding that that's the reverberation that your neural cells, your neurotransmitters is kicking out. And that's what transcends time and space. And that's how we connect to people who we love, don't love. We connect to the universe because we're transmitting those vibration and that love. And that's healing and that's cultivating. I hope that made sense.
Yeah. So, and some viewers probably watching, well, you got over 40 years in mastering the mind and the body. So for me to be 35 and I was homeless with 6 kids, that, to try to master, my head was full. I'm just now allowing. At first, when I was being interviewed, getting interviews and this and that, now it's picking up. A guy just taking it global.
Right.
I didn't really see the magnitude of what others saw. I didn't really see. Sometimes, I was sharing my story. I'm a minister, so I was just ministering through share my story. But now I'm seeing the magnitude that it had to take some form of emotional intelligence.
Right.
To be 35, homeless, 6 kids with a GED and little work history, and turn that around within 10 to 12 years. But I didn't have the training like you have some people just. But I had to learn how to get to a place, like you said, and center, become self-aware with myself, and start to lead from a place of healing and personal development, working on myself. So the last, I'd say 15 years, I've been intentionally working on personal development. So as a parent, because the topic is, we can't be our children's friends, but having the emotional intelligence of raising decent children. Why we see so many kids out of the households are so out of out of whack. They're so in disarray, which leads broken communities. What happens, in your opinion, when a parent is it because they're just so not in tune with who they are?
No, I think many parents are teaching through trauma. They're teaching through trauma filtered environments. They're like, they have been poisoned fruit, right? So, and what is trauma? Trauma is anything that reflects on your internal and external. Trauma is anything that reflects on internal and external. So if something happened to you as a child, it traumatized you because it's an instant shock. Your brain picks up that shock wave, and it could be from a whooping, it could be from someone getting killed. Trauma is very subtle. It doesn't have to be so grandiose, like a rape, like I've been molested. You know, when I was a child, I had to heal through that. I healed through being in the military, post. So all that stuff takes a lot of work of understanding that how I am living isn't in reflection of what happened. Like he was mean to me, she was mean to me, my parents beat me, so I'm going to do this. I lived around a bad neighborhood, so I'm going to make sure I raise my child to be hard. You know, we again, the environment's dictating what we're doing, so we're not really teaching our children, we're transferring our children. When you start to teach your child, you are very diligently in what you're giving. But if you're not giving, which is nurture, and you're taking, which is survival, when you teach only survival, you're taking life from them. When you only teach survival, like you gotta, when you start using words like, if you don't do this, you ain't gonna make it. If you don't know how to do this, you're never gonna survive. If you don't go here and do this, you're gonna be worthless. Those are survival skills. You guess you're taking life from them. And many parents don't want to take life. They're thinking, if I teach them survival, they'll at least be able to live. But that's not living. When you're surviving, you're not living, because living has everything to do with joy and pain and acceptance. You can call it wherever you want. You can call it joy or you can call it pain, but it's acceptance of what the environment does. It's the balance, right? Yeah, you're going to have some people who are going to die on you and you're going to be sad. That's okay. You're going to have some people that's going to be great in your life. You're going to be happy. That's okay. It's how you mentally approach it and understanding how it's vibrating inside your internal, because it's only what you accept and what you cultivate. We got to keep going back to that cultivation. Am I cultivating this, or is the nature of my environment directing me to teach my children this or that? And I think through trauma, and Dr. Joyce DeGruy had said this, post-traumatic slave disorder is very alive and very efficient when it comes to the Black community. They are traumatizing their children by how they're teaching them, because they don't want them to be misled, abused, or taken. And so, and yes, being a Black man in the United States or in the world can be fearful. It is, because it happens. But there is still joy you can live in your life. You could be aware of what could happen, but that doesn't mean you have to just only think about survival. Because when it comes to emotional intelligence now about survival, then we only use our amygdala, our survival skills part of our brain. So we never use our frontal lobe, which is where our consciousness is, and where we have what you call empathy, compassion. You know, that's all up in here. I don't want to get so scientific in the brain, but if we're only using the survival part of our brain, which is the oldest part of our brain, some people call the reptilian brain, the reptilian mind, when we only thinking about the saber-tooth tiger attacking us, that's not living. I don't know if you can love someone else only in survival.
Well, help me dissect this, because I was in survival, but some kind of way I tapped into what you call the front part of
the frontal lobe. Just the frontal lobe, yeah.
Frontal lobe. So I had tapped into that for my children, but I was in survival. You know, it's like I was operating out of masculine and feminine energy.
Yes.
Simultaneously, but I was more masculine because I did have to have a sense of protection, because I had 6 kids I had to keep from the school to prison pipeline.
Right.
The drugs, gangs, defects. but I was able to tap into what I was nurturing. I didn't speak to them from a survival. Well, if you don't do this, you know, what I did was I speak to them with gentleness and kindness and well, look, if you do this, these are the consequences. That's it. I just gave, go ahead.
But prior to that, I bet at one time in your movement, something opened up here where you said it became like a huge light going, I want you to live.
Yes.
And once you accept that and opening up that pineal gland and opening up all those vibrations, and now you're allowing your God to speak to you through here, and it's coming down into your body, then you can understand that amazing balance of this is teaching, this is nurturing.
Yes.
Right. And now, and that's all. And I wrote a book called like out of the shadow into the black. And that was about my trauma, because we think we're growing up, because I had to come out of my own trauma of shadow and into my human being as being a Black male, or just being a male, or just being in this human form. Because remember, we're existing now in this human form.
It's, you know, but it took so much mental, oh my gosh, I think to operate at that level. I didn't even know at that time that that's what I was doing. I just remember having conversations with my 6 children that I said, I don't have no plans for your life. Only God knows why you're here. My job basically was to get you safely to shore.
Right.
You know, where I felt like I was drowning and I'm holding them up above water. My job was to get them safely to shore. And I said, I'm not going to tell you what you can do with your life. All I'm going to tell you, if you're going to be a janitor, be the best janitor you can be. And so I think I freed something into them where there was no, I got to do this to make money. I got to do this. No, whatever you want to be.
That's acceptance.
Go ahead, Dr. Dyer.
Well, that's acceptance, right? There's only one way to go from acceptance, and that is lift it up higher. That's what we call high vibration. Now you can go from forgiveness to acceptance, and then that raises your vibration, because until you release yourself from damnation, right? From your sickly, diseased thoughts, right? Because your thoughts can give you disease, which we know is disease, which affects your cellular self, right? Because your cells vibrate. Our bodies are always, doing this little shimmy going, woo. But when we are unhealthy, our cells get dim and they stop vibrating. And then so now cancer becomes prominent. Tumors start to grow, right? Kidneys start to not filter anymore. Our liver doesn't do its job. Our kidneys doesn't absorb. I mean, your body starts to slowly, and because we are human form, it may take a long time, but your body's been shutting down here's the simple thing. Understand the trauma you are in, recognize it, and admit it to yourself openly.
Okay.
There's a difference between going, I know this happened to me. And no, when I say openly, being able to openly talk about it and say, this happened to me, and feel that uncomfortableness. Now we say you got to be okay with feeling uncomfortable to get comfortable. And once you start talking about that trauma, like when you talk about your homelessness, this is not something to be ashamed of. This is something that was, but it wasn't. That's not who I was. It's just something what I was. There's a difference, right? Because words have everything we say, and a lot of things we say are mirror cells that we're saying to ourselves. Even if you say, I dislike that car, or I dislike that person, your cells internally is vibrating at a negative level. Even if you say, I dislike that, where you think you're consciously pointing to something else, your internal soul, your internal spirit doesn't know you're pointing. It doesn't know that you're pointing at that car or that building or that person. It knows it's negative inside. So it affects you negatively. And you're like, but I'm only talking about that over there. Well, your body doesn't know. Your internal cells don't know what you're pointing at. You think you're pointing at because you're living through your eyes. Your body's living too. That's living tissue only recognizes and vibrates at the tones of the words you're using. The tones of the words you're using. So if you're going to speak in deaf words, negative, or you're going to speak in glory and in acceptance, that's vibration raising up.
So I'm listening, and so much is going on here, because for me, I felt so much shame and humiliation from being in that situation for such, and just pushing and but for somehow I was able to it's just interesting how even though I felt like I was dying in the inside, but it's almost like I took every breath that I had to nurture, to empower, to inspire them, although I felt like I was suffering, because it was hard. It was the mental shift, like we talked, it was so hard. Like, I wrote myself in the hospital because I was having a mental breakdown, because I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm trying. But one thing I did was I was able to maintain, although we was homeless, although I started out with a GED, I didn't have any resources, nobody knew me but the welfare office, I still maintain a parent-child relationship.
Which is huge. Huge.
Yeah, which was huge, because at that time, because it takes a lot of effort when you're in a low place and you're vibrating. For me, I was vibrating at a low, but I think I just used whatever energy I had to keep them vibrating at a higher. That's how I tell people God was with me, because when I think back, it almost made me want to cry sometimes, because the mental shift that had to take place to just start to operate on that level, it was hard. It was almost excruciating pain to just keep that. But my children knew we're not my mother's friend. I don't care if they got 17, they seniors in high school. It was still a level of, I'm not your friend. Whether we're homeless, whether we're struggling, I'm here to guide you. I'm here to protect you, and I'm here to empower and uplift you. So it kept a level of the boundaries was in place. I still had healthy boundaries in place.
Well, when you said, I mean, let's look at, you said you're here to guide, protect, and love, and nurture. You said nurture, right? Nurtures love language. Guide is a creative side of your hemisphere of your brain. Protect is back in the amygdala part of the oldest part of your brain. Nurture is in the frontal lobe of the brain. It's different signals. So you were firing on all the signals and not just survival. Because if you only fired in survival, you would have never nurtured.
Yeah.
If you only fired in guide, they would have never been protected.
Yeah.
So we can generate, and our brain is so amazing, because we have so much energy in our brain and what we can do, but we have to use the whole brain, and not just, I'm only this way. Most people hear in short phrases that I'm a right brain or I'm a left brain, right? Some people are atypical, some people, but if you understand that about yourself, then you're not using both hemispheres. Right? Yeah. And you were able to use all hemispheres, left and right, to be a part of your children's lives. Because if you only taught your males, and this is something like to do with culture, like I only teach my males how to be hard, right? Then they never learn how to love. Then they won't know love, because the love that they learned is a hard style. Like even in the martial sciences, like there's hard and soft forms, right? Energy qigong, Tai Chi, all these different forms are hard and soft. We balance the yin and yang of nature and how we move. Those are all in key ingredients. You just can't be one way or the other way. And if you're only one way, that way is actually going to harm you. If you're only one way, then that way is going to harm you. And that's not good, because then you have nothing to balance nature off of. Nature doesn't grow one tree really big without sacrificing the other trees. It doesn't work that way. So when we have a life and we are doing more and giving more and servicing others, we actually service ourselves. And once we understand that, what brain am I using? What neurotransmitter is firing? What part of my body and organ wise is healing this way? I had wrote in this book, Emotional Reaction Training Manual of the Heart. Now each organ has an exercise that you can work with, right? So because you have different oils, you have the body systems, you have the nervous system, you have the endocrine system, the digestive system, the respiratory system, and all that is affected when you understand your emotional reaction training. Because if you only are reacting without understanding, then it's all negative force and negative power, right? The sun, when you're bathing in the sacred river of the Ganges, right? And when you're in the place of your someone teaching you how to meditate. Meditation is manifestation of your higher self. You are lifting your full volume of your body, of your spirit up into the gifted one. And that's the sacred place. That is the sacred place of how we do it. So when we only do one thing or the other, we only harm the children we're trying to protect and teach, because we are not giving the full body of, like I've heard you say, God doesn't just show you good, he shows you all things. Whether you think it's good or not, that's your fault, because he's going to give you what he's going to give you. And it's going to be on his time and his space. You may think it's hard, you may think it's easy, but it's just life and there's a balance to it.
Oh my. So when it comes to parenting and that balance, what would you feel the issue is in today's society with parents want to be their children's friend? They want to party with them, they want to drink with them, they want to hang out with them, they want to, let the kids use profanity in front of them. It's almost, the mothers dressing like the daughters. What do you feel today is the breakdown of the parental, like when we grew up, we knew the parent was a parent and children were children. But what do you think is the breakdown in today's society with the balance between parents and children?
I think it's harmful. I think the breakdown is harmful. I think the breakdown you're talking about has a lot to do with the environment dictating that, and they're folding down the parent, right? Okay, so when the laws came out in probably the 90s, whatever, about corporate punishment and different types of punishment, and the courts took over a lot of issues with parents, right? They made teachers tattletellers. That's really it. They're like,
Yeah.
the state is trying to raise the child, right? So now we have the republic trying to raise our children. So they are trying to remove the parent, and a lot of parents have folded to that pressure.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
since the state is raising my child, then how am I going to be in my child's life? And this is unconscious. And
Mhm.
that's what it goes back to, is the environment dictating who you are to your child.
Mhm.
If you are unconsciously saying, well, the state says I can do this, do that, do this, well, I'm not really a parent. I don't have to be a parent anymore because they got it. So I
Okay.
might as well just be my child's friend. And then
Mm.
so that's really what's going on. I think it has nothing to do with the child. It has a lot to do with the parent not understanding how the environment's dictating what they are and what they're not. And that's misunderstanding the subconscious and how the environment's directing them. That's because they're doing it. So now they're able to say, well, we don't need the parent anymore.
Mhm.
Wow. We got this. We have the laws, we have the rules, we have the guidelines. We are dictating to your child what they can and can't do through social media, through social acceptance. That's why there's more bullying online, right? Because now
Mhm.
the republic, the government's taking over raising your children. And that's why child suicides have gone up, because parents have gone away. we
Okay.
have an we have an increased amount of suicide. It's the number one killer outside of
Wow.
diseases.
Mhm.
Anything outside of cancer and something of a disorder is suicide. People
Mm,
got to look at those numbers. Why do you think suicide is so high? Because someone is dictating what you're not. Someone's
mm.
dictating the parent that you don't need to be.
You know, that's interesting because as soon as a child get into trouble, the first thing they say, well, where's the parents? Why didn't the parent intervene earlier? Why what, you know? And so for me, and I understand, I mean, I had 4 kids by the time I was 22. So I understand that, you know, people who had kids at a younger age, you feel like, you know, you want to party because you still young, and but sacrifices has to be made. I mean, once you start to bring another life into this world, I haven't done, I'm just now starting to live and spread some love and compassion
To
on
yourself.
myself, you know. But I had to make some once I had kids, I could know, well, I was never a party person, but that lifestyle of me feeling like, oh, I'm missing out, I'm not out there with my friends, I'm not, that had to be. And I think sometimes parents feel like, no, I'm still young, I'm in my early 20s, I got 2 kids, I'm this, and the line of parental guidance started to blur because they feel like I'm missing out, you know. And for me, I just had to sacrifice. You know, I was telling my kids, I said, y'all don't been more places than I have, you know. And you know, my daughter and my grandchild just came back from Mexico after being there for a week.
Wow.
You know, and I'm like, I haven't even had a vacation yet. I have, you know, but it was just, as a parent, I just knew that no matter who left or stayed, I had a duty to raise my children to the best of my ability with the best, you know, the knowledge that I had. You know, and of course there were things I could have did different. But one thing I did with my kids was I was authentic. They saw when I was depressed. They saw when I was, they knew I had got admitted to the hospital because the journey got so hard. They saw me sad. They saw me with a range of emotions I didn't hide from them. But one thing they did see, that I gave up. They didn't see when I got out of the hospital, mom went right back to class. You know, I just kept pushing, I just kept going because I had 12 eyes watching me, you know. And so that balance, but I didn't even know, when you were speaking earlier before we got disconnected, that I didn't even know what was going on, that I was operating on all cylinders. But I just knew the person, I'm a loving person naturally. I'm an empath, you know, that's just my personality. But I was able to, and I think that's when my kids said, Mom, you was able to bring balance. It wasn't like you was hard on the boys and soft on the girls. Everybody got the full round of balance. You know, if we needed to be disciplined, because we trying to get a little five at the mouth, you would discipline us. But it was, and that's what I wrote in my parenting guide. That's why I said, water me, feed me, nurture me so I can grow.
Yeah.
And this is a mini parenting guide. I just, about 50 some pages, where I just put the main nuggets in what I really use to help me navigate parenting, adversity, and also raising leaders so they can go out into the world and be whoever God called them to be. Because I don't, you know.
But that's cultivation. That's and so the things you did, how to grow something, you must, there's a lot of things you do to grow. I mean, we are a growing, living thing. So look at us as like a plant. We need oxygen, we need water, we need food, we need nutrients, we need all kinds of things. We need soil massaging, we need, so that is how you grow a human being. If you only give a plant one thing, it'll wilt. If you give it too much sun, it'll die. If you give it too much water, it'll drown. So all of it, we got to give it all. And that's when you said that you didn't even know that you were operating in the full body. We have to embody. And that's where, if you go back to your religious studies, when Christ says, I am the body of life, right? That's because he's giving you the Trinity. He's giving you all of glory, right? He's giving you all of the light. He's giving you all of love. He's giving you all of it, and in balance. If you don't recognize it, which goes back to the emotional intelligence side of it, if you're not recognizing what is being given to you by the universe, then you are unbalanced. And you only are reacting out of subconscious behavior. We are
Oh,
all we're taught by the environment. We're taught by the environment, by things, education, things that are told to us. So however you want to call it,
yeah.
we are by the energy, by our emotions, right?
Mhm.
Those are the things that are teaching us. You take the teaching, use it as development to cultivate. But if
Mm,
you're only going by the teaching and going right from there to the action, then you're not part of it.
okay.
You have to
So
be part of the cultivation. Otherwise, you the streets are raising you through
yeah,
you.
yeah, that's right. I mean, you when you said that, that was my thing. I just made a vow that the streets were not going to raise my 6 children, nor the jails was going to house them. And it's interesting for me. I feel like even being uneducated at that time and living in poverty, I really didn't know the fullness of what I was speaking. I just knew as a parent that I just had a duty to at least try to save my kids. It wasn't well. I had these kids, the father's not around, we homeless, whatever. But I just knew that it was up to me to at least try to raise decent children that are not menace to society. And out here, I told my 6 children, I said, I don't really, whatever you decide to be in the world, I will back you up. As long as you're not a menace to society and breaking laws and becoming, you know, someone that is not a healthy individual, I would back you up no matter. So giving them the freedom, which I didn't have. I didn't have the free range of just being grow. I think I gave them, and it's interesting, God is so good. He gave me the book cover with the little plant and everything, I just, it came to me, and I was like, I was just giving them the nutrients to grow, the room to make mistakes, to fail, to blossom without harsh judgment. So it was just, and at first, I was in a vulnerable situation because I was giving them a person who I had been rejected for so long.
Right.
So for me, I'm like, I don't know if this is gonna work. I'm just gonna give them all of me, show them who I am in the inside. I don't even know if you feeling that, Dr.
I do. Yeah.
I just took a chance on when that home, I'm like, you know what? Okay, show your kids who you are. I know it was hard because that part of me had been rejected.
Yes.
That part of me had been raised to say it's not good enough.
Right.
And so for me, the shield of, I'm like, look, I'm a servant leader. And that's how I was able to teach my kids on how to serve when we didn't have it. I just took a chance to, I didn't have money. I didn't know nobody. And I felt like a nobody, but I took a chance on letting my guards down and say, hey, this is who I am.
Just think of what you said. I was teaching my kids how to serve.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm telling you, the universe is so amazing. When you act in service, the tools will be given to you. If you got to think of it like that plant, the flower, the plant that's growing, the flower that grows is service to the universe because it gives off, oxygen, takes in carbon dioxide, right? It's food for an animal to eat, and then it nurtures the soil as the deposits come out. It's cyclical, but it's all through service. If you taught your children to only take, then that is the negative part of living. And that's because that's saying, well, when I get up, I'm going to get mine, and no one's going to take me, and I'm going to have mine, and I'm going to have mine. Those are all taking, and they're negative, and the body and the mind become sick. But when you teach service, man, that's.
And it's interesting because at that time they couldn't see it.
No.
So they was like, what are you talking about? We don't have anything, Mom. You're trying to teach us how to give back.
Yep.
And so for me, it was like a dagger in me because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is all I have to give. This, I'm a servant leader. But I just showed them how to give back. That when we leave this world, the only thing that will have eternal value is what we did for someone else, our service to others. And by them complaining, and we did events, I got the newspaper articles, but they didn't really see the seed that I was planting.
Yeah.
Then they turned around, now they're serving in the military, retired military, college students, college grads, in the medical field, authors, and entrepreneurs looking for ways that they can give back and serve. So it sometimes just made me cry because as a parent, I was giving my 6 children the only thing that I had as a little seed,
Yeah.
you know, and they and for me, like I said, that for me, that trauma for me was family, you know, raising. That's not good enough. You got to be better. My mom didn't put that on me. If you don't do this, you ain't nobody. If you don't,
See,
so for me,
right.
and so for me, I was like, I'm gonna take a chance,
Mm-hmm.
give my children. I know everybody laughed at me and said what I got to offer ain't good,
Mm.
and I just gave my kids the only thing I felt. I just gave them me. I just, and you know, and it almost made me want to cry because I was raised that wasn't good enough.
Right, right, right. When people are raising children saying you got to be hard or someone's going to take advantage of you, you got to do this or you're never going to get that, those are all trauma related verbiage. And that hurts a child. And I understand, I thoroughly understand when a parent, a person is teaching and living through trauma because they may not have recognized that what they're doing is trauma.
Mhm.
So once you develop and ask yourself, and I go to therapy. I go to therapy too. I have a therapist. I go and I give therapy. Right.
Yeah.
Everyone has a teacher. Right. And in that teacher, that's where you are developing and learning. Right. And then after
Yes.
that, you cultivate. But if you have not recognized your trauma, I'm going to tell you right now, you're living in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Someone just needs to help you say, those words there are negative words. And they would say, but
Mhm.
I've been using it for 30 years. I understand you've been using it, but it's a negative thing. And here's how you can say it. Because until you learn how to change the negative vibration in your body, you're not going to receive the grace that is given to you, or you're not going to
Mm.
receive the glory that's or the higher vibration of acceptance. And I think that's where we stay sick and stay sad. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I tell you, the more I'm just, oh God, you know, like you said, I think once I open myself up to for God to work through me and for the energy, the love from him to flow without feeling like, and because I had friends that used to hit their children in the chest and try
Yeah.
to make them hard,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd be like, oh my gosh. And one of my family members said, well, see, your kids came out good because you was strict, you didn't let them do this. I said, well, we look at your children and they all know I was scared of your kids. They'll come rob me. You know, it was trying to let the kids do that. You know, a lot of people I see now, they was trying to let the kids do whatever, you know, at an early age. There was no guidance, no steering. And I said, well, for me, I don't know. I'm a deeply loving person. And so I'm just blessed. You know, for me as a leader and a minister, I believe ministry starts in-house.
Mm-hmm.
Not that we can save everybody, because you could be the best parent, kids still go haywire. You can did everything and guide and love, and kids can still get off track.
But that's not. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong. I mean, we as parents, I understand we might feel very a negative trait, like I did all I can, and look what has happened, or look, I could have done this, I could have done that, I wish I would have done this, I wish I'd done that. No, I don't know. We gotta get to forgiveness. Well, when you're gonna
Yeah.
forgive yourself? Because if you don't forgive yourself, then you'll never live. And if you never
Yes.
live, then you're on a survival. So then you start repealing backwards.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I had wrote this book, one of my first book called Tears of a Dragon Brings Inspiration. And because it's through our tears that we see glory. It's in our tears that we see ourselves. And then that's when we ask ourselves, what is that feeling I'm feeling down in my gut, right?
Yes.
That big vagus nerve that's runs throughout your whole body, that second brain that says, why am I feeling this way about me?
Mm-hmm.
So that
Mm-hmm.
that should trigger, who am I?
Mm.
And where was this developed from? Huh? And when you start digging into that, and it's hard, transition's
Mm-hmm.
hard,
Yeah.
you start digging into that and opening up and peeling it open, and you're like, oh, that's because when I was 6, this happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
That's the trauma that's teaching out of my mouth. That's why I'm afraid of. That's why I do. That's why I'm unable to. Because I'm living through this trauma, and it's directing all the things that I do. Yeah.
You just said something about the vagus nerve. Because I was working my way out of trauma, while in trauma, being home, I'm working my way out of it. Raising 6 people that I end up getting gastroparesis. And gastroparesis is when your vagus nerve have become paralyzed from stress. It's incurable, so now you got to think, I'm homeless. I'm a full-time student. I got 6 kids. And now I have an incurable disease, gastroparesis, where at any time I can have an anxiety attack and get sick. I'm in the emergency room. So I'm about, because the level of the stress of pulling myself out of trauma while keeping my 6 children from, it started to weigh on my body. Like you said, the sickness. So even today, I live a very it's almost like, this thorn in my flesh. It's there, but it has caused my lifestyle to be very, I would say, organized.
Right.
I had to learn I'm learning how to live with it and its triggers, because of, like you said, the sickness from past trauma, trying to deal with trauma while you're in, a situation. It was hard on me, Dr. Dyer.
Yeah.
Gastroparesis has definitely turned my life upside down. I don't know if you're familiar with gastroparesis.
Because it is brought on by stress.
Yeah. It is, and where I went from, where I could do my life is so disciplined in order for me to, that's how I'm able, that's the good thing about it. It taught me how to be disciplined, how to not waste my time. Because for me, gastroparesis, I can eat the wrong thing and get sick. I can overexert myself, exercise, and get sick. If I go it's almost like having a double dose of vertigo. And so for me to deal with being sick, being rushed to the emergency room, being homeless, it was hard.
My mother developed, she had in the 70s, she had a mastectomy. My mother would develop tumors because of what she was thinking. If she's sad, my mother would develop cancerous tumors. So we were growing up with it, and then later in the late 70s, she realized that it was her thinking what was causing the tumors, and she went away to a naturopathic clinic in Alabama. I'll never forget it, because my mother had only had like a year to live that they had gave her because the cancer was killing her. So she went to this holistic place in Alabama, and so me and my brother got it. We did it down. Me and my brother were in a house by ourselves, but had family member, but that lived next door. But my mother was gone for 6 months. And then when she came back, she didn't need any more pills anymore. She didn't have any more cancer. Her tumors were all gone. And it's because of, that's how I learned from there, what you thinking can cause sickness in the body. I learned that at a very,
Wow. I tell you, I have enjoyed this. You have school. I mean, your information. I knew you was gonna bring such a vast knowledge and to help us learn how we're operating, how we need to deal with past trauma. I even mentioned some of that in my parenting guide. Getting to know who you are. I think that's my first chapter. Who are you first? Before we start talking about kids and parenting, who are you? So God just gave me a confirmation that this guide is right on time. So Dr. Dyer, how can people get in touch with you, and if they want to buy your books, tell the audience that?
Well, you can always buy my books on Amazon. They're pushed out and produced there. You can just put in Dr. Paul Dyer, Grandmaster, and it'll come up on Amazon. But if you want to get a hold of me, I'm on all social media. A lot of his stuff is like the Dakota Dragon. I have my own podcast show called Bridges Live with Dr. Paul Dyer. You know what? I look at it this way. If people want a teacher, they guys start looking, and the teacher will be there waiting for you. Because until you open up and say, I want to learn, I don't know if it matters how they can find someone, because they're not ready for the person. They're not ready to be taught. And you're only going to know if you're ready when you start asking yourself questions, not answering yourself, but asking questions. There's a difference.
Oh my goodness. So do you have a website or email if somebody want to reach
No,
out?
you can email me at drpaulwdyer@gmail.com. Yeah, but I don't have a website. I was trying to revamp that, and I just got to redo. And
Oh my good. I hope you guys got this. I mean, just full. I feel like I ate a Sunday dinner already. That's when you know you got some good nuggets. But to the parents, I want to encourage you that something Dr. Dyer said, we got to learn how to forgive ourselves. We did the best we could with what we knew, with what we had at the time. And so show some little love and compassion to yourself. And if you're on that self-healing journey, I'm still on my self-healing and learning how to love myself unconditionally. Just be gentle with yourself. That's a lot of things we could have did differently, but hey, we just got to move forward and give just some compassion and love to ourselves, and learn how. I'm gonna get Dr. Dyer book so I can know how to still deal with past trauma. I'm doing good. Get some counseling. I get counseling. Dr. Dyer said it's no shame. We need somebody to talk that's unbiased, that ain't gonna take your business back to the family and friends. But be gentle with yourself. Parenting is hard. A lot of stuff that we've learned was passed down to how we was raised. So again, I love you guys. Thanks to the producers, Shivani and Harun, for collaborating with Phoenix Rising so we can bring these awesome topics on parents and leadership. Join me on April the 11th at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time for episode 5. And we'll be talking about walking the red line of women in leadership. How do you handle when your spouse becomes jealous of your success, or when you start to outgrow them? Tune in again April 11th at 12 p.m. in Eastern Standard Time, 9:30 Indian Standard Time, on walking the thin red line of women in leadership in the home. I look forward to seeing you guys then. Peace and blessings.